What's good, everybody? Welcome to the warm-up. I'm your host, Ja.
And I'm your host, Kaylin. Today is June 10th. It is the day after the second game of the NBA Finals. So what topics are we going to be covering today?
Yeah, so just a little rundown of what we're going to go over today. We're first going to start off with the NBA Finals as a whole and how entertaining it's been to watch the Mavericks and the Celtics go head-to-head. We're going to talk about potential ways the Mavericks can come back and how they can at least make the series interesting. We're going to talk about how, at the beginning of the season, what the Celtics told us in their roster build on how much they need to overcome Jason Tatum's struggles. And then lastly, we're going to talk about the impact of a single elimination game like Game 3. It's win or go home, season's on the line, just do or die time.
Alright, so let's go ahead and get started with the first topic, which you mentioned, NBA Finals so far. So how have the NBA Finals been shaping up so far this season, in your opinion?
Games 1 and 2 were very interesting. On Thursday, with Game 1, for instance, I mean, one, it looked like the Mavericks didn't know what to do, and they didn't know it was the NBA Finals. 2, it wasn't their fault that who would have guessed Kristaps Porzingis would have came out the way he did.
True.
He had 18 points in the first half, I think, finished with 20, but his impact off the bench in Game 1 specifically was tremendous. And even in Game 2, I mean, the Celtics were down, I think, 7 early on in Game 2, and then insert KP into the lineup. And they went on a run and tied it up, took the lead, and it was a close game for the most part, but Celtics, that were generating great looks. They just missed a lot in Game 2 compared to Game 1 when they were making, seems like, everything in that first quarter. So, yeah, it's pretty interesting to see how the different dynamics of each game and what they're bringing and how similar each game has started out with, but also finished. So, yeah.
I thought it was kind of interesting that they didn't, that Porzingis wasn't in the starting 5 for the second game. You think there's a reason for that? Or?
Yeah, I mean, just because how dominant they won by, I feel like you don't want to mess that up. Mm-hmm. Now, if they were to lose, I guarantee you probably would have started Game 2, but I feel like there was no need to start. Now, I do feel like Derek Lively should have started Game 2 instead of Daniel Gafford, but Gafford ended up having a better game than anticipated, so.
Okay, so what have been the standout moments or key turning points in the finals so far?
I'm gonna focus just on Game 2 for today.
Yeah.
A key turning point I would say for sure would be one, each time Porzingis came into the game, and then I didn't know how great of a two-way player Jaylen Brown was. And he's been showing it to us all season. He's been the primary defender on most nights for their other team's best player. He's picking up Luka Doncic full court. And yeah, Luka still at 32, but I mean, there's been, I think now games 1 and 2 where Jaylen Brown has picked Luka's pocket and got a breakaway dunk. And he's forced Luka into 8 turnovers. I mean, and those turnovers aren't just turnovers. They're going out of bounds and they reset. Their live ball turnovers turning into pick sixes. I mean, as soon as that ball is turned over, it's a bucket on the other side. So it's going to be interesting to see if Jaylen Brown keep that up. Another key turning point for me, very underrated. About like 3.5 seconds left in the third quarter yesterday of Game 2. They insert Peyton Pritchard, who's made these crazy half-court shots all throughout the season, and I even looked at you. I said he comes in and this is what he does. And here he comes. He comes down and shoots the half-court shot and he makes it. And it's like, I mean, at that point it kind of felt like the Mavericks had some momentum going into the fourth, and that shot had to be so demoralizing for the Mavericks because you finally found something, and then instead of being down 6, you're down 9, but with the crowd behind the Celtics at that point. So it's pretty interesting to see. What do you think? What do you think the chances are Jason Tatum gets out of his shooting slump throughout the series?
I'm not really sure. I think it'll be interesting to see how they play on the road. I'm not sure if you know, is Jason Tatum a pretty good road player?
Yeah, I mean, on the road, I think he'll just be just fine. Celtics as a whole haven't lost a road game all playoffs, so, but Tatum's played kind of better on the road. I've seen he came out in Game 3 against the Cavs and blitzed them and had a really nice big game. So it should be pretty interesting. Another turning point. Let's see, a turning point in a bad way, I would say, at least for the Mavericks, is I didn't anticipate that the Celtics role players not only would step up as much as they have, but how comfortable the Celtics are on letting them all switch on to Luka Doncic. Instead of Peyton Pritchard's on Luka, go send a double team. No, you're just letting them play straight up. Sam Hauser switches on Luka, playing straight up. I mean, even Al Horford, I think, is one of their better defenders on Luka statistically. I mean, that's a weird stat, but Al Horford's held his own. Kristaps Porzingis got switched on to Kyrie Irving multiple times yesterday, and Celtics just lived with it. Played one-on-one, didn't double, and I think that's the main takeaway. I think what I take from games 1 and 2, the Celtics are okay with Luka killing them as long as they can minimize the others and don't let the others get him in a rhythm. Now, credit, role players play better at home, so going back home, are the Mavericks role players going to kind of come back to what they were in the Western Conference playoffs and in the Western Conference finals? So that's a key thing to watch. And I think overall the Celtics, if they could get, because the Celtics, in my opinion, haven't played that good either.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm watching the Celtics, each play they're trying to get Luka or one of the bigs switched on to whoever has the ball, and then they're going at them, getting into the paint, and it's a drive and kick scenario, and they're generating great quality shots that they're just not going in. They shot, I think, 25% from 3 last night. You shoot 25% from 3, the best 3-point shooting team in the league, and you win, you'll take that any given night. I feel like that's a game the Mavericks should have won yesterday.
Yeah.
Now, as long as they keep generating those good looks, it's going to be hard to beat them, because when they get Luka on him, everybody's trying to help Luka, and it's just a kick out, swing, shot going up.
Mm-hmm.
And then with everybody out of sorts, they're actually offensive rebounding pretty well than people would expect. So should be a pretty interesting game 3 on Wednesday.
Something that we were also talking about yesterday during the game was the amount of passes that were going on in between each plays, which I thought was really interesting, how drastic of a difference it is between the teams.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, like Celtics, they're averaging about 288 passes a game per cleaning the glass, and then the league average is about 278. The Warriors and the Pacers, they average about over 310s.
Wow.
Game one, Mavericks had 210 passes. Game 3, I think the Mavericks had 245 passes. So they're even still below league average, and I think that's credit to the Celtics, but also a nod to the game plan, and they're just sticking to it. I mean, Luka is gonna get his, and they're gonna go one-on-one. They're forcing him, and the lane's pretty open because they're letting Luka drive. They're not letting Luka drive, but if they're gonna live with a shot, it's him driving to the basket. And so when he's driving to the basket, I mean, how many times in the Western Conference playoffs did we see Luka drive or Kyrie drive, lob, alley-oop? I think they have 2 alley-oop converted in the whole series, which is crazy because they led, like for example, going into the finals, they had 58 alley-oop dunks, right? Mm-hmm. The closest team to that was 9, and that was Denver. So, and Mavericks obviously played longer, but credit to the Celtics for doing that. If the Mavs could get some ball movement and more generation from their role players, I think they'll be all right. But Game 3 will be telling of, obviously, where the series will end up. So
yeah. And so Game 3 is on Wednesday, and it is in Dallas, correct?
In Dallas, yep. Okay, next 2 games are in Dallas.
Okay, so kind of moving on into our next topic is kind of a Mavericks comeback. So what adjustments do the Mavericks need to make to get back into the series?
The Mavericks need to first and foremost, this Kyrie Irving needs to just play better. Flat out simple. I mean, he's just not been good enough. His shot selection, I think what's more interesting to me is he's one of the highest regarded paint finishers in the history of the game. I'm not seeing a lot of chances for him to drive to the rim and get creative at the basket, whether it be lay it up or to pass it off. So I think if he can start out being aggressive, getting to the rim, because Luka's going to get his. Luka is going to get his. And I think Luka needs to make a conscious effort to get Kyrie going, knowing that he could get his. Because I think once Kyrie's going, then it makes it harder to guard Luka and the others. Because right now you're kind of just, everyone, all eyes on Luka, and then you're hoping he makes something happen. I mean, PJ Washington needs to step up. He had a decent game energy-wise, and had some good little plays. Derek Lively was one of the, I would argue, the third best player throughout the Western Conference playoffs, and had the best plus minus. And currently through 2 games of the finals, he has the worst plus minus. So he needs to step up. He is a rookie, though. You know, it's hard to play everything on a rookie. Derek Jones Jr., I think, needs, if he could get some of his shooting he had against the Timberwolves, I think it would be a better game / series. Gafford had a decent game yesterday. It's kind of hard to read with Gafford because I don't know how to explain it, but it's like he knows he's about to get subbed within a minute and a half, 2 minutes into the game for Lively. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if he'd just rather just come off the bench or, you know, because Tatum's guarding him. It's not like Porzingis or Al Horford have guarded him. They put Tatum on him, and shout out to Tatum because he's guarding the bigs and he's really orchestrating all that. He's kind of like a point center right now for them, even though his shot's not falling. Someone else that I think that needs to get brought up is Jason Kidd, their coach. So Jason Kidd, I love Jason Kidd. I thought he was arguably the best coach all playoffs until now. I think that when it comes to rotations, like playing Jaden Hardy, I get it. You need Jaden Hardy. Josh Green, energy guys, defensive guys. Mm-hmm. But now it's time to get a little desperate. I mean, Maxi Kleber, he's coming off the bench. He hurt that shoulder in round 2 or round 1 in the playoffs. They're daring him to shoot. He's one of the best shooting bigs. So he's obviously not 100%. They're daring him to shoot. If he makes a 3, then, you know, Dante Exum needs to step up. But he's not really in the rotation. I think Jason Kidd, though, needs to try Tim Hardaway Jr. You've heard everybody talk about Tim Hardaway Jr. And now where I kind of back Jason Kidd on this is that Tim Hardaway Jr. is an awful defender. I mean, god-awful defender. So, and he's a volume shooter, so he needs a lot of shot attempts. Mm-hmm. So, I think if you could get like him in the game, he could see the like 1 or 2 go down. I think that'd be huge for Dallas because, I mean, the role players just aren't giving you anything, and including one of your stars isn't giving you anything right now in Kyrie Irving. So It's kind of like, I don't know if it's the Mavericks playing this bad. I don't know if the Celtics. I think you also got to give credit to the Celtics for playing this good. Sure. So going from there, I think it should be in. I mean, Game 3 will be telling you'll be back at home. You know, maybe he does play Tim Hardaway Jr. and the crowd's behind him. You have all that adrenaline. I mean, he might see a couple fall down. That might be the game. Derek Lively, I think, will play better at home. Being on the road in your first NBA Finals in an atmosphere like Boston is probably nerve-wracking as hell. I mean, there's not too many places that you probably rather not play in for NBA Finals than Boston. So
and that crowd is crazy.
The crowd is crazy. I mean,
they're so loud.
Yeah, and you hear him booing Kyrie the whole time. I don't think it's getting to Kyrie, but I think it's getting to him. I'll say, I think it's getting to him a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, so how did the Celtics roster move this past Oh, how did the Celtics roster's moves this past offseason reflect the front office's confidence in Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown?
So I think at the beginning, going back to the last summer, the day before training camp, when they traded for Drew Holiday, and on draft night when they traded for Porzingis, I think it was very telling. Going back to the 2022 finals against the Warriors, Jaylen Brown was still the best player on that team, and it was supposed to be Tatum, and Tatum had an awful shooting series. Tatum this season is having an awful shooting playoffs and an awful shooting series against the Mavericks in the finals, but the others are so good that it's nullifying what Jason Tatum's doing. Jason Tatum's still having a decent series from assisting, getting the boards, playing defense, but he's not. His shot just hasn't fallen.
Yeah.
And so I think it was very telling from the Celtics front office at the beginning of the season that no matter how bad Tatum could play, they could still win these type of games because Drew Holiday's a NBA champ with a veteran experience, and he's coming in and he's making these big plays and had a big game. I think he was 9 for 9 in the paint last night, 7 for 7 in the restricted area. Like, you'll take that. You got Porzingis he only had 12 last night, but he needed every 12 points of him. He did get hurt. It'll be curious to see if he plays in game 3. So overall, I think the Celtics front office always knew that this is what Tatum is, and I think this past offseason they finally just accepted it, and they're like, this is Tatum. He has his ups, he has his downs, He has a lot of downs, he has a lot of ups. So if we put so much talent and so much shot making around him, even when he has these bad games, like a game like last night when they shoot 25% from 3 and I forgot what he shot from the field. Let me pull it up real quick. Well, I can't find it, but... Oh. Tatum was 6 of 22 from the field last night.
Wow.
So, he has a 6 for 22 game, and you still win that game.
That's crazy.
You asked me that last year, or any years prior, you're not winning that game, no chance.
Yeah.
So, tip your hat off to Brad Stevens in the front office for just embracing that. I mean, Tatum still had an awesome game, though. I mean, you watch the game. He got Drew Holiday. I mean, I think he had 6 assists to Drew Holiday.
Yeah.
He got the others involved, but he still tried to get his shot up. He had that, I think, crucial steal against Kyrie Irving where he plucked him later in that game.
Mm-hmm.
He's rebounding. He has, amongst Lively and Gafford. And I think Tatum gets a lot of flack, and rightfully so, but he's not, like, when you watch him, he's not the type of player you can watch just the box score on the stat sheet.
Yeah.
You have to watch the game and see his actual impact, And it's kind of weird. He's like a really good he's like really playing in his role, but he's not a role player.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So I think Jaylen Brown, though, I mean, he's had his up and downs too, and the same goes for him. The NBA or the Celtics saw that these guys can have their ups and downs, and they put a roster so good around them that regardless of the outcome that they play,
yeah, he seemed very confident in the game last night.
Yeah.
In the series so far, he just seems like
I mean, he's been their best player by far, and I didn't realize he's always been like the alpha mentality, but this series, I mean, he's picking up Luka full court. He's been he had in game 1 some of the craziest like guard to guard blocks I've ever seen. He looked like a big man out there.
Yeah.
So tip my hat off to Jaylen Brown for sure, but the roster's so good that there's not much you can complain about if you're a Boston Celtics fan. I do think, like, from an offensive standpoint for the Celtics, I think they played like a C+, a B- offensively the first 2 games. I think I mean, they're due to have their shooting come back.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if they had 4 players with 20 points next game, or
Yeah.
like Tatum, Brown, KP, Drew, and White are all due for big games. Like they had credit, they haven't needed it, right? But as we get further into the finals, they're gonna need. I think some of that shooting will come back into place, and you'll see it, and it won't be like a Porzingis where everything is just falling for just one guy. I think it'll be like the ball's moving. Tatum boom, Brown boom, White boom, Drew boom, KP boom, and you'll look up at the end of the game. Whoa, wow, 4 to 5 players and 15 plus, 20 plus points, and you're gonna be like, oh wow, that's great. Like, of course you're gonna win that game. So, and yeah, but defensively they've been great. Offensively, I think they've been subpar. So
yeah. I think you touched on this a little bit, but what does the construction of the Celtics roster say about their strategy for this season?
Kind of like what I hinted at already. That they knew what we all knew. Tatum's a really good player, but he needs a really good supporting cast. And
seems like they really built that kind of base around them.
Mm-hmm, for sure.
Kind of last topic of this episode is going to be with the series now effectively a single elimination. What should we expect from Game 3?
From Game 3, I think all eyes are on the Mavericks to make it interesting and for Kyrie to have a good game and all the role players. And I think they have to come out and win because teams are 158 or 56 and when they go up 3-0. So knowing that, if you're the Mavericks, it's a must-win game. It's your season. You're gonna need big games from all the role players: Exum, Hardy, Derrick Jones Jr., Josh Green. Big game from your superstar and Kyrie. You're gonna need all of it. You gotta ride the momentum of the home crowd and go from there. From the Celtics standpoint, you gotta know the challenge and that they're gonna come out firing on all cylinders, and you gotta be prepared. And they're gonna ride that first the crowd's momentum, and from there you gotta take the punch and then punch back and then keep punching, because as soon as you can minimize the home crowd, then I think the easier it is to play on the road. So the quieter the home crowd, the better. So, and if it gets to a close game at home, I'm always gonna take the home team. So you gotta, and I'm gonna take Luka and Kyrie. So it's on the Celtics to stop that from happening as well. Yeah.
All right, so that is going to wrap up the episode for today, and we will be back after Game 3 to talk about the outcome.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Don't forget to subscribe and share.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Bye.